Groveland and Stacy Collins.
Welcome back to a very special edition of The Leading Edge. This is the final episode of our 12-part series. And Stacy, it's just been so great to go through this series with you from Unity of Houston. And our special guest today is Reverend Shad Groverland, Executive Director of Unity Worldwide Ministries. And we are cheering. Yes, the crowd is going wild. Shad, it's great to have you.
Finally, the cheering
Yes,
I deserve.
There it is. So we're talking about recognition and celebration and how important that is for creating culture around a mission-driven organization. So not only in this section, we're going to talk about some specifics on things you can recognize, what that specifically could look like. And we also have a very special announcement that we're going to share with you. So I'm super excited about that. So let's talk about specifically recognition and awards. And I want to start out with where some might have resistance to recognition and awards. So I know that I love to give specific people specific awards. For example, when we do our annual small group leadership summit each year, we've always done an award for each of the 5 spiritual disciplines. And if you're like, what does that mean? Go back to episode 3. We talk about building a culture around these 5 disciplines. And so we talk about communion, prayer, and meditation practice. We talk about connection, community, challenge, and compassion. So those are the 5 spiritual disciplines. So because that's the core of our culture, I like to reinforce that by giving awards around each of those 5 things. And the way I've done it, the process I've used is by encouraging people, whether you're a group participant or a group leader or the minister or whoever, if you notice someone who's really, really, creating connection in the community, then nominate them. If you notice someone who's really great at reaching out with compassion to others, then nominate them. If you recognize someone who really takes on the challenge and is helping to spread the word or inviting or doing something that's sort of outside most people's comfort zone, acknowledge them. So if you've got someone who's praying with a group for the first time, and stepping into that communion challenge, it's, acknowledge them. So I have these nominations come in, and then from those nominations, I have a very scientific process for reading them and then picking, which is usually just me going through them and saying, oh, I like, this is a good one. So it's not really all that formal, but I pick a winner. But what I also do is I let everyone know who is nominated. I reach out to them privately and say, I just want you to know you were nominated by Shad, you were nominated by Stacy, and here's what they said about you. So I let people know when they're nominated, and then we have our awards ceremony where, I might give a printed certificate or a flower or both, something just to say this is what our culture is built on, and these are people who are doing it well. Now, I share the specificity of that because I know, we're called Unity. And so in Unity, we like to be inclusive. And if everyone can't get a prize, we don't like to get prizes sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. So I want to sort of open that up and hopefully lay that fear to rest. I have found in doing this for almost 8 years now, I have never had an experience where I feel like I have acknowledged a leader and had other leaders feel left out. I haven't had that experience. So if there's any of that in your mind, hopefully that will, I encourage you to try it, see what happens, because what happens when you're specific is you are specifically creating the vision of what you want more of. You're able to communicate it. And by having the nominations, you're actually reinforcing in the culture that these are the 5 things that are part of our culture. So the whole nomination process encourages all your group leaders, all your group participants, all your people in the ministry, all of your board members, all of your leaders to think about the 5 things that are part of our culture and how's it getting expressed? How's it getting expressed? So it's more, again, it's the reinforcing of this is our mission, this is the culture that supports that mission, and these are the people who are doing it well. And because we have so many series, we have 5 series a year. So there's opportunities to acknowledge different people throughout the year. So that's my my setup for this. Anything that you want to add, Stacy, from your experience doing celebration events?
Yes, I love this idea of nominations. We have kept it a little more general, but I'm kind of digging this. And my plan is this time to send out a survey anyway to all the group participants and just to share a thank you with their hosts that the hosts don't know. So hopefully they're not listening. And those are going to be part of their Christmas present. It's just the testimonies from the group members. But I love tying it to the specific spiritual disciplines just to reinforce that. Why we're doing this, what's happening in these groups. So that's great, Mindy. I love that.
Anything you want to share, Shad, about specificity
Yeah,
acknowledgement?
when you were talking about that, I thought of a lesson I learned from a 14-year-old. When I first got back into Unity in my 30s, I was teaching youth group at Uni of Las Vegas. And the idea of donating and tithing came up, and we were talking about youth group, and they asked, and they said, well, how much do you give to the church? Just, kids just straight out will ask these type of questions. And I said, it's not the type of thing I like to tell people, it's not something I want to brag about. It's the humble thing just to give without expectation of return. And they said, well, why don't you just tell people how much you give? And I said, it's just a cultural thing. And this young girl said, but don't you think if people saw how much you're giving, it would inspire them to give? And it was really like the humility in me didn't want to have my name out there. She's like, I think if you had it written somewhere how much you're giving, other people will go, oh, I respect Shad and he's giving this much. That's a good thing. And it really shifted my concept of recognition because I never liked it. I didn't like to be recognized for things. It just felt uncomfortable. It felt egotistical. But then you realize it really is, it's part of that tribal mentality. It's starting to see, other people are stepping up. And it's not to say that they're better than you, but it's just to understand that you can. It's an invitation to always step up. And when we're celebrating people who have stepped up, it's just acknowledging that any one of us can do it, but that some are. And that the whole group can rise when we step up together. But it might take a few people stepping up first and stepping up again, and we rise and we rise and we rise. But it creates that culture of normalcy, that stepping up then becomes normal. It's not just, oh, well, the rich person can give because they've got the money to give. You go, oh, Shad's giving, and I know he doesn't make that much money, or whoever case may be, or giving of their time or their talents. It creates that culture of we rise together, we step up together, we call each other to rise with us, instead of it's just become this weird, not talked about thing in Unity and other groups we are part of that, well, we don't talk about money, we don't talk about how much time we have. It's just, but then you realize, no, that's ridiculous. We should celebrate those who are stepping up and rise with them.
Yeah. And it's so great. That's the beauty of recognition is it allows people to be humble in their giving because no one's doing it for the recognition. No one's doing it for, the spotlight. But it's up to us as leaders, I think, to look for people to spotlight and to be able to say, we see you, we see what you give, and we appreciate it. And not only just to be able to whisper that in your ear, but to be able to shout it from the hilltops. It's like, we appreciate what you do, and creating that sense of we are doing this together. So some really great examples. So I like acknowledging for those 5 spiritual disciplines that we talk about, because those are the cornerstones of the culture that we're trying to reinforce with the SpiritGroups program. I also love, Stacey, what you said about acknowledging your group leaders. What we used to do when I was in Colorado is we would have, at our celebration event, I would invite, so in SpiritGroups, let me back up just a little bit. When you lead your first series, you're considered a Spirit Group host. So a host is someone who is stepping into leadership for the first time. And if that host decides they want to continue, then they essentially graduate into becoming a Spirit Group leader. So a Spirit Group leader is someone who has completed one entire series and has now moved into our advanced leadership track. Well, that's a significant accomplishment. And so anytime we had someone moving from Spirit Group host to Spirit Group leader, we would acknowledge them, and and they got a certificate, and like, you are now a Spirit Group leader, and we could bring them up to the front and give them their big flower and give them their certificate, and then we would invite their group members to share anything that they want to share about how their lives have been transformed. Again, there's the mission. How has my life been transformed because you said yes to leading this group? And when you start sharing, like, my life is better because you signed up for that orientation, you went through the training, you organized it, you kept us coming together, and here's what happened in my life because you did that. it starts to have other people want to step into lead. Like, I want to create that for other people. So I think it's really powerful to acknowledge your leaders and to look for opportunities to celebrate some of those milestones and to work those milestones into your system.
Well,
Yeah,
you're really
and
grooming your future leaders at that point, not just
exactly,
the spirit group level, but for anything you're doing. And
exactly.
I think that's a big element we've missed in a lot of, not just Unity, not just ministry, but a lot of organizations I'm in, really looking at who is going the extra mile and grooming them to support them moving up. And not just recognizing, oh, well, thankfully, I'm so happy they do all that work, so I don't have to, and just keep dumping more work on them, but go, wow, okay, you've got something going on here. We should be celebrating and lifting that up and grooming the next leadership ultimately to replace ourselves. If
Yeah.
we have that humility in leadership, we should always be grooming and looking for the person that replaces us, at least comes to that level with us, instead of, well, I'm creating my subordinate. No, I'm creating my equal and helping you rise to where I am.
Yes, Charles Fillmore said your job as a spiritual leader is to create coworkers, not followers, coworkers who are on board and working with you to bring the mission to life. And so that is, to me, and I know this is a bold statement, but I will make it without hesitation. I don't believe you can do mission-centric or ministry without having a small groups program for that reason, because without the small groups, I haven't seen any other structure that allows for the cultivation of leadership. And if you're looking at mission-centric ministry as it's the minister's job to do this stuff for the congregation, then yeah, the minister can do it all. But if you look at mission-centric ministry as what it is intended to be, which is what is our mission as a community, what is ours to do for the world, to transform lives in the world, not just to transform our lives, but to transform lives in the world. I don't know of another way to create the leadership infrastructure as effectively as small groups do. So with that, I'm going to toss it over to you, Shad, for a bit of a breaking news announcement, something very exciting. So what's shaking over there at Unity Worldwide Ministries?
Well, we heard it mentioned that Spirit Groups is going to be wound down in December, and Mendy and I had some conversations about the idea of the possibility of UWM taking on Spirit Groups, so we continue on after that. So we do have the intention of taking on Spirit Groups, and the plan of actually putting resources behind it to keep it going. And so Mendy and I are in conversations of what exactly that's going to look like, what's the timing for that going to be, but it is our intention to take that on because we see the value in it. And before, when you're talking about how much time a ministry commits to the process, and it might be one season, it might be a year. They talk about Gary Simmons, 3 to 5 years. Well, this is something, it's different than trying a class. It's different than trying to add just another service or trying an outreach project. This is really the current and future of ministry. It is the current and future of people coming together. It's not something I think we can just try it, of course, but I really think it's something we have to move into no matter what. No matter how we get there, this is where we are going. People want to connect together in the size of a group where they can make that connection, not a group that's too big. The idea of being talked at for long periods of time is waning. It's still there, it's still valuable, still a resource, but the group work is really where the value lies. And we don't want to see that go away at UWM. We think that's a huge asset for our ministries and for people in general. So we want to see that keep going. So that's what we're going to be working towards.
The crowd goes wild. The crowd goes wild. You heard it here first on the leading edge. And I'm just so excited, Chad, because I feel like I've spent going on 8 years now, like creating the infrastructure and really modeling what already works. So I haven't done anything original other than translate what some of the pioneers who've been doing small group work for 40 years, 50 years. This is a tested model, and I have just been the translator bringing it into the New Thought movement. But I've always felt like these teachings and this structure, to be able to bring it into Unity Worldwide Ministries, where there's already this amazing program for training ministry leaders, that's where people look to learn and to grow their skill set. I think it is finding its way home, and I am so excited about what the future holds, and so grateful because we have this dynamic And, with this series, we've had more engagement lately. I mean, it's just been so exciting to see people step in new ways, with Stacy here each week with me and sharing what we know about small groups. We have our Facebook group that's dynamic. We have a YouTube channel. We have, all of these, Twitter's accounts. We've got all these ways to stay connected and to build this connection and to share what's been happening. We've been doing this for 7 years. So we have a history, and now, with what we're co-creating, it's going to continue forward. So really, really excited about that. And I know there's a lot of people who have reached out to me and said, really, you can't find a way. You can't find a way. So yes, a way, what they say, sometimes if you just affirm that, let it go and see what emerges. And this is a wonderful emergence. So
well, I've had two big, well, probably several aha moments, but two really big aha moments in my ministry. One was you and one was Gary. And I came to your presentation at convention. I don't know when that was, 5, 6, 4 years ago, however long ago that was in person. And you presented Spirit Groups. And it was one of those times I sat there as a minister. And each time, both these instances, the thought that came to mind was there's hope. Because when you're in ministry, it's just overwhelming the amount of things you've got to stay on top of to try to help create a thriving ministry. And there's so many different personalities, so many different moving parts, and everyone's at different levels of spiritual growth, and trying to meet them where they are and give a talk that touches everyone, and no one's quite happy because it's impossible. And it's just, you sit there and go, I just don't know how I help people spiritually grow with this much difference going on. And when I came to the Spirit Groups presentation, that was one of those moments where I go, oh, here's a tool that addresses that, because it gets down to a small group level. You could try to do in the classes, but the classes didn't necessarily build on each other. Different people were at different classes, and it was just kind of all over the map. And then when I went to Gary's presentation for mission-centric ministry, that was a second, okay, there's hope here. It's not just me trying to figure everything out and pull everyone along as a minister. It's we're all a team in this together. We're establishing that we all work together towards this. And the group work is where we get these tools and we grow together. And those two things. So I've had a passion for Spirit Groups, and hearing about this whole process, I know the power it has, because those two aha moments, I know that every minister either has had them or is going to have them. And so we have to have these tools ready to support them when they get to that place, or they already are at that place.
Yeah, I love working with ministries, especially in that first year, because it goes from, now tell me how this works. Now tell me how this works. Like I get that, it used to drive me crazy when I go to convention and I would hear people say, we're the best kept secret, or if only we could figure it out. And I'm like, there is a way, there is a way, there is a way. And it's so fun seeing in that first year. And, I worked with Reverend Karen Tudor before she was at Houston. I worked with her. She was one of the first ministries to sign in for Spirit Groups. And just the whole process from, her first year in and then coming into Houston and seeing the questions she would ask, like, well, what do you do here? And what do you do there? And being able to say, okay, now don't go do that yourself. Don't go fix that. Let them fix it. Like some of the things that we just intuitively, we want to go in and do things for them, where to cultivate leadership, it's like, no, you don't do that. Step back, watch what happens, step back. And to have her now say, everything that you said this would do, this is done. So Stacey, I'm going to toss over to you, because Unity of Houston has been in the process and you have been going through this culture shift. What do you want to share about that experience?
Everything you both said about leadership development is just so true. And it works both ways. Once somebody, if they start at the level of host, they're also looking at their group members to see who might be a good host. And people in the groups, they feel engaged and inspired to give back what they have received in the group to seed another group. And the other piece besides leadership development, well, there's so many beautiful things that come out of it. But one of the ones that has touched me the most is you really are creating a community that cares for one another, and not just says they care for one another, but they have this group of people. If somebody in your small group has a surgery, is in the hospital, is going through a relationship challenge, their small group are the first people to know, and they are supporting them. And it's instead of seeking that ministerial support all the time, or not all the time, but you know what I mean? There's so many things that we find out are going on with people from, they're like, oh, my spirit group showed up. Oh, my spirit group brought me meals, whatever it is. And it just really creates a vehicle for caring, what caring community really looks like, and compassion in that. So it's just such a blessing to watch it.
It really
be
is.
part of it.
Is giving people the space to step into ministry themselves and ministering to each other so that people don't fall through the cracks. And what I love seeing is, you have a group that, it's like it's great to have a chaplain program, but how powerful to have a small group where you're praying for each other in the small groups every single week. You're taking care of each other, all the pastoral care things. Those things can happen through the small groups. And what's really beautiful is to see when there is a need in a group that is beyond the group's capacity, seeing other groups having this, it creates a system, a hierarchy for being able to fill people's needs. So if I have someone in my group and they need something and I don't know how to do it, I can go to my small group leader, and there's this network of resources where it's like, okay, is there a group that wants to help with this? I've also seen it, and this is where I'm so excited about UWM stepping in, because I think we can create this network where, and I've seen it happen when, with some of the hurricanes that hit the Gulf Coast, where we had churches who were waterlogged when Harvey hit Houston, and we had groups in Houston. We had 3 Spirit Group campuses in Houston, and then we had our groups in Dallas, Fort Worth, who were like, how can we help? We want a service project. And I said, well, you can go down, here's a church that needs help. They need a work day, they need a cleanup day, and to have ministries as their small group service project, do a road trip or do a fundraiser or do something to help a spirit group in another town, in another ministry. It creates this network of support that connects us in a way that I don't think we've been connected before. It connects us in a way that truly is unified. It truly is unity in motion. So, so super, super excited about what the future holds. Stacy, we always wrap up with, what are you doing now? Here we are, it's November. What's happening now in small groups? What should people be thinking about in their small group ministry?
Yes, well, as we were talking about, it's all about that recognition. Now that you're wrapping up, it's a good time to ask your group leaders for those pictures. Those pictures, as we mentioned before, are just priceless. Get the word out about those, and invite them to your celebration events. And then, of course, start planting the seed for the January launch, or if you're planning on meeting over the Christmas holidays. I love the idea of having the groups gather just for service projects over the holidays, and you can plant the seed there. So as we wrap up, it's just a great time to show your appreciation and to, just really kind of be in that. Like we talked about, celebrate what transformation has taken place for you as a host at the group level, at the individual level. It's a beautiful time.
I love it. One of the things I noticed about spirit groups is that's kind of fun is as people go into it, it's something that at first people are like, tell me what this is. How does it work? How does it work? And then once you've done it for a while, it seems so obvious that it feels like you've always done it. It's like, oh, we've always done this, right? We've always done this. So, as we close out this series, I really want to invite, first of all, I want to say thank you. I want to say thank you to all of the ministries who have continued their support through our Patreon community. So that's at patreon.com/spiritgroups, and you can give monthly. Those monthly contributions have created the base that has allowed us to continue offering this. At a very difficult time, we were able to make it through COVID. We were able to provide resources through all the things that have been happened with the pandemics and the shutdowns. And there are ministries that I truly feel, I believe, are stronger today or are here today, possibly because they had this infrastructure in place. So thank you to everyone who is giving consistently through Patreon. And I want to encourage you, continue doing that. Look at your gift and see what are your spirit groups doing for your ministry. And it maybe this is a good time as we shift into moving this into Unity Worldwide Ministries to look at that contribution and see, how do I want to increase that? Do I want to continue doing that? It really does create the foundation. I also want to say thank you to all the ministries who have reached out and sent in checks, sent in portions of their tithes, because there have been moments throughout these 7 years, every single year, I think, I don't know if I can do it another year. And then something will happen and someone will send a check, and God works in beautiful ways. And I know that Spirit is working through those of you who your board, your leadership is saying, these groups matter to our ministry, and we want to put our financial resources into this experience to make sure that we have this training. And it is because of you that this transition is able to happen. So please, I encourage you to continue that generosity as we carry forward and engage in all the resources that are available. Shad, anything you'd like to add? Final words, final thoughts?
I just can't even wrap my head around all the amazing things that are happening in the world right now. And I know we kind of move to the media, we hear about all the negativity, but when you really look at the things that are happening outside of the drama
Mm.
and in and through the drama that are kind of getting lost in it, there are giant shifts going on right now in every aspect of society, and they're moving in such an amazing direction. I just invite us all really to start to recognize all of those. And this Spirit Groups movement is one of those. It's moving in an amazing direction. I'm very excited about it. And I think it's in alignment, so in alignment with what is needed in the world today. And the timing just couldn't be more perfect. And they're just seeing that everywhere I look, this timing is happening now. And it's calling us all to get on board for movement forward and to stop the movement of resistance, to just start moving forward together. So that's just the invitation I put out there.
I love it. I'm so excited. Shad, thank you so much for joining us for our final episode today. Great to have you here. Stacy, it's been such a joy working with you for these 12 weeks and for all the time that we've worked together as Unity of Houston has been stepping into Spirit Groups. Thank you all for tuning in, for sharing this with your colleagues, with your board, with your leadership teams, sharing it with other ministries, letting people know that this resource is here. All of these episodes, the whole 12 episodes of this series, you can find them archived on Unity Online Radio. So they are here for you indefinitely to tap into. Thank you all so much for being part of this series. I just encourage you, share, engage, grow, and go out there and make a huge difference in the world. Blessings, everybody. Thanks for being here. Bye.